If you're scrolling through endless listings wondering whether any of these pre-built gaming rigs are actually worth the cash, I hear you. You've probably spent a good chunk of time trying to figure out if you'd be stuck with a machine that can't keep up with the games you love, or if you'll end up overpaying for features you'll never use. That uncertainty is real, especially when you're looking at a desktop that promises a lot on the spec sheet but leaves you guessing about the day-to-day experience. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I took a deep dive into the Skytech Archangel gaming PC because the name itself sounds like something straight out of a fantasy shop, and I wanted to see if it lives up to that hype in a typical home office or bedroom setup. First off, this rig is built around an AMD Ryzen 55500 processor, paired with an NVIDIA RTX 3050 graphics card, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, and a 1TB NVMe SSD. Those numbers look solid on paper, but what really matters is how they translate into actual gameplay, streaming, or even just juggling a couple of work projects alongside. Let's start with the core audience, casual to mid-range gamers who play titles like Fortnite, Valorant, Elden Ring, and even newer releases such as Starfield. For those players, the Archangel delivers smooth 1080p performance in most modern titles, often hitting 6070 frames per second with medium to high settings. The RTX 3050's 6GB of VRAM can handle ray tracing in a limited fashion, and the card's drivers have matured enough that you're not constantly chasing updates. If you're the type who streams on Twitch or YouTube while you game, the 16GB of RAM is just enough to keep the OS and your streaming software happy without choking the system. In short, if you're looking for a ready-to-play machine that can hit decent frame rates out of the box without you having to tweak BIOS settings or install a custom water cooling loop, this is a good match. Now, who should probably walk away? If you're a hardcore 1440p or 4K enthusiast, the RTX 3050 will start to feel cramped quickly. You'll notice dips in performance the moment you crank up textures or enable advanced effects in graphically demanding games. Similarly, if you're a content creator who expects to edit 4K video on the same machine you game on, the GPU and CPU combo here will feel underpowered, and you might find yourself waiting for renders longer than you'd like. Also, if you have a strict budget and are comfortable building your own PC, you'll likely find a better price-to-performance ratio by pulling components together yourself. The Archangel sits at a sweet spot for convenience, but the pay-for-assembly premium is still present. One of the hidden trade-offs that trips people up is the cooling solution. Skytech opted for a high-performance air cooler, which is decent for the 5500's thermal envelope, but because the case is relatively compact, you'll hear the fan spin up under sustained load. In my testing, when running Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p with ray tracing off, the cooler kept the CPU under 75°C, but the fan noise rose to a level that could be noticeable during quiet moments. If you're setting up a gaming station in a bedroom where you sleep with the lights off, that extra hum might be a minor annoyance. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to be aware of. Storage is where the Archangel really shines for most users. The 1TB NVMe SSD cuts down load times dramatically. Games that used to take a minute or two to boot now load in 10 seconds or less. And because it's an M.2 drive, there's no extra clutter of cables inside the case, which also helps airflow. For anyone who keeps a library of modern titles, you'll have more than enough space without needing to add an external HDD right away. If you're a modder who likes to keep a bunch of texture packs or custom maps, the SSD still feels spacious enough for those needs. Another practical aspect is the networking. With built-in 802.11ac Wi-Fi, you can get reliable wireless performance, but I'd recommend plugging into your router with the included Ethernet port for the most stable gaming sessions. In my house, the Wi-Fi gave me consistent 70 megabits per second speeds, which is fine for most games, yet I still prefer a wired connection to avoid occasional latency spikes during competitive matches. Power supply is a point worth noting. The 650W gold-rated PSU is more than adequate for this build, and the efficiency rating means you're not wasting electricity under load. It also gives you headroom if you decide to upgrade the GPU later. Moving to an RTX 3060 or 3060 Ti would still be comfortably within the PSU's limits. So, the system is somewhat future-proof in that sense, though you'll eventually run into CPU bottlenecks if you try to push it beyond its intended performance envelope. What about the operating system experience? Skytech ships this unit with Windows 11 Home, fresh out of the box, and they've taken care to strip away most bloatware. The only pre-installed apps are